Hi midlifers, this is your technical problem alert. This week, for some reason, my microphone didn't want to talk to my iPad, and as a result, I've got quite wonky sound quality on this week's episode. Simon, as ever, remains crystal clear and pitch perfect. I sound like I'm talking through a tunnel. Hope you'll forgive me, and fingers crossed, normal service will be resumed next week. What have you done this week that makes you feel proud, Simon?
What a good question. I'm glad you asked. What a busy week it was. You know what? Can I, I'm not sure pride is the right sensation. Is pride an emotion?
I don't know, maybe satisfied, maybe that you've achieved something. Yeah, it's kind of I basically took it from the M People song. What have you done today that makes you feel proud? That sense of,
This is a podcast in which two friends talk about the pleasures, absurdities, and imperfections of being human. I'm Simon Ellis.
And I'm Lee Miller. Welcome to Midlifing. Because obviously it's one of the seven deadly sins. I don't think I'm thinking in that.
Oh, yeah. It's also the name of a U2 song for those eagle-eared listeners.
Everybody knows that Simon likes U2.
Oh, yes, I still do. It's true. And I'm proud of that. I think the thing that comes to mind, and this is really follow-up from last week, and so I'm not sure how long to dwell on it, but my solution to the issue of...
a family member?
Yes. For those of you who don't know what I'm talking about, then you go listen to last week's episode. And I just said quite clearly, left a message saying I can't cope with this. It's not good for my mental health, and I'm going to stop now. And if you need to talk to me about this, then I would like you to ask the lawyers to contact me, to do it through the lawyers. And then, and then I got a message back saying I couldn't be bothered listening to your message and deleted it. Resend. And after much umming and ahhing, I did decide to resend it. I was sorely tempted. See previous conversation about intransigence. Sorely tempted not to resend it, but I did, and then hit the block button. Which, you know what? Boy, did it go! I could have done that months ago.
Yeah.
But the thing about it, and I think this is a very strong theme throughout the 2+ years we've been doing this, which is for all of the sense of, it's nothing satisfying about that. Nothing satisfying about that. That's what it came to. Absolutely. And in fact, pride is not at all the feeling, but certainly the sense of going, I've got out of a situation that I was not able to cope with. And so I feel relief. I feel a certain amount of sadness, but definitely feel better than this time a week ago, if you know what I mean.
Yeah, I do. That sense of having... It's like lancing a boil. It's not necessarily a comfortable experience because you've got to, split the skin and drain things out, and then you've got to pack it and keep draining it and all of those sorts of things. But you know that tight feeling of something being festering inside. I'm so sorry for the mental images here, but there's something curative going on, even though it's not comfortable.
And it's definitely not one more in the name of love.
I mean, I don't know what one more would be in this context, so I don't know what they're saying.
I know, neither do I.
Is it one scone? One more Malteser?
I'm sure those were possible lyrics for Bono and the Boys back in 1984.
In the name of love, one more. In the name of love,
one more scone.
One more sandwich? Oh, just one more glass of wine in the name of love. Okay. One more for the road. In the name of love.
So yes, pride is not. I mean, I think maybe there's a touch of it because I don't think that's something I do very often. Is to withdraw myself from a situation like that.
And what have you learnt, even in the short term? Because I know it's difficult to answer this.
Just a week later.
Oh, exactly. But what do you?
Nothing could possibly go wrong after a week.
No, I don't mean about what the consequences might be. I didn't say what do you think the consequences would be. I mean, what have you learnt about yourself as a result of having made that step? What's it opened up to you? It's probably something that lots of people listening would like to find the capacity or the wherewithal to just draw a line under something. So it's a pretty ballsy move, mate.
I don't think of it in that. I don't think of it as like courageous or ballsy. It reminds me a little bit, for example, of I think I would have been 14, and I mean, I was always a bit of a fast twitch athlete. And for those of you who haven't studied exercise science, that generally we have muscles which are more or less made up of a kind of sometimes fast twitch, sometimes slow twitch muscle. A certain quantity.
Am I right? Am I right that twitch fibers and so like if you've got like fast ones, you're good at jumping and kind of like explosive movements,
exactly,
and slow ones are good for the long kind of the long distance stuff. Is that right?
Pretty much. And there are.
Look at me!
I know.
I paid attention to something that you said at some point in my life.
Yeah, and it's a little bit more nuanced than that, but more or less you can train them to a certain extent, but mostly it's just genetic. You've got a certain percentage of these and a certain percentage of those, and there's and again they're subjected to training, and I was more of a fast twitch bloke person, sprinter, jumping, that sort of thing, and I was running in a 1,500 meters race, which is not. Well, actually, it depends on your level, but just not a lot. That was pretty slow twitch for me. And I was getting beaten badly. I really didn't like getting beaten badly. And also, I didn't feel good at all physically. And I pulled out. And my brother, who was 3 years older than me, who was an elite athlete, cyclist, very, very national champion. And he said, I would never, ever pull out of a race for any reason whatsoever. And I mean, I'm sure he didn't say it in quite that kind of tone, but he was
That's what you heard.
He was very matter of fact about it. And I certainly felt I felt shamed. I did. I felt that ashamed, firstly, that I was getting beat so badly, but also that my reaction to that was to pull out, was to withdraw. So there's a certain aspect of the story which is when we can't face a battle and we turn and run. There's a certain amount of that. Not too much, but there is. And then the other part, which is just relief, and just acknowledging in the week what I've learned is just how stressful it had been, just how and how long it had been like that. Because it was that sense of relief was almost instantaneous.
That's a lot to unpack because of the sense of. I'm just thinking about the family member, your brother, that sort of sense of. Do you think the intention was to shame you, or do you think the intention was to just sort of go, okay, look at us, we're different?
No, I don't think it. And also because like I say, he would have been 17, I was 14, give or take, and so it's quite a big shift in your life from 14 to 17, and also I don't think it's not the kind of person I understand him to be. So no, I don't think so. I think he was more stating a fact, but I think maybe he was expressing disappointment. But I didn't. It's not how a relationship was. It's very. I think I could insert any quantity of, 40 years later stuff into that question, and not really. I could. Any answer would suit me now, but I don't really know the answer to the question.
Yeah, Yeah, yeah.
If you get what I mean, and I think that even that, more generally, if you're not thinking about, let's say, my woes and thinking about it more broadly, that's just that there is a pretty fascinating thing, which is, well, what is the story I might tell of that moment? And it came to me under these circumstances, and I told it in a particular way. But there are many other ways I might tell that story. One of which being, I never quit again. As an athlete, no way.
That's fascinating. I wonder because I came to my body very late in life, as you know. I don't think I experienced completing something until probably well into my 30s.
It was just right before you learned how to complete a bottle of wine by yourself.
Yeah, it's probably all part of the same thing. So I think
Coming into your body, going out of your body. Yes. So yeah, you came into your body, and then you were going.
Yeah,
anyway,
I came into my body so much later than you, and so that sense of never having really completed anything. I never completed a race. I never completed a bike ride that I didn't get off and push my bike up the hill. I didn't. I don't think I got a swimming proficiency badge. I did none of those things. My body was not.
Not your temple.
It wasn't. No, I think that sounds more jocular than I intend.
Oh.
I genuinely didn't understand it or know how to corral its properties.
And so, what was physical education? Was there physical education at school?
Oh yes.
And that was just you went out and played sport.
Physical education was between 2 and 4 hours of abject torture and horror per week. That's what it was. I lived in absolute fear of going into those spaces.
And what sort of percentage of your colleagues or peers did you think had similar experiences?
There were maybe 4 or 5 people in my class at any given time that were roughly the same, and most other people kind of rubbed along or were good. I didn't go to school with elite athletes, but I went to school with lads who were gifted physically. But it was just I didn't understand the joy of moving. I didn't understand the ability to move my body in one direction or another direction. I was clumsy. I fell down. And there was
no sense from the teachers, the phys ed teachers, that part of their role might be to find ways to include you.
No, their role was to shame me.
Oh.
Their role was to call me fat or to call me lazy or to call me stupid. That was their job. 3 of
our favourite words.
Yeah. Always guaranteed to make somebody do what you need them to do.
On behalf of all physical education graduates around the world, Lee, I just want to apologise.
I think, it's very nice of you. I think it's having gone on then to become a yoga teacher.
It is a turn up. It's a turn up for the books, isn't it? That one.
It is a turn up for the books, and I think
even when I first met you, it still shocks me a little. Wait, hang on, what?
Yeah, I know. Oh, I know. It was a steep learning curve, and I think. But when I encounter bodies, one of the things that I'm really, really keen to communicate is when somebody looks at me doing something and then quite often looking at what you are doing and trying to translate that back into their bodies and then being frustrated that their body won't do what your body does. And then they'll go, oh, why can't I do that thing? And having to sort of gently remind them that the people who teach things usually teach it because they've found an ease in their body,
and have been doing it a long time.
I don't even think it's that. I think it's that the people who go on to teach something probably have an innate capability in the way their body is made, that they can do that thing. So they can, it goes to your twitch fibers. People who are good at teaching long distance running probably have a body that is good at long distance running. And so, do you know what I mean? I don't know if that's...
You're saying that the people that you get, you find yourself good at something and you're more likely to teach it.
I think that you wouldn't teach something that you couldn't find that you were good at.
Oh, it's so intriguing because I sort of have this sense which is sometimes the opposite, which is, I think, I'm using you as an example, but which is not to say that you weren't good at it. I don't mean that at all, but that you, because of the coming to it late, that your experience of learning it was much less like the kind of learning that I did as a tennis player, which was as a very young person. And so it was just, that's what I was doing. It's very different from learning yoga in your mid-30s, where your self-consciousness about it, your awareness of what the teaching is going on, because you're already a teacher yourself, not of yoga. So that your awareness of that situation meant that, for me, my experience of teachers like that is that their capacity to share the experience and what's going on in the experience is far more nuanced than one who's just done it from the word go and has no real recollection of what it's like to learn this thing.
Oh, I fully agree, but I also think it's both and. I would not have been standing at the front of a room teaching yoga had yoga not sat so incredibly well in my body. I was able to find it in a way that nothing else sort of settled into my body. So I think that's the bit that I mean, that, that it's like when you've got somebody going, why doesn't my leg do that? It's like, well, maybe your leg's just not ever going to do that. And that's okay, because we're not trying to chase a shape. And that was the bit that I think was missing from, and these were probably people a lot younger than me now, but I think of them as these old men shouting at me. Yeah. Just incapable of understanding that the thing that they were competent at,
and had never thought otherwise,
was something that might not be, might not be available in somebody else's body. Yes,
and also that people who are not like that effectively become objects of scorn, and that's just in a way a lack of imagination. And I remember it very clearly that, and I'm sure we've talked about this, which is just to say, how is it that you don't enjoy, not being able to comprehend how you couldn't enjoy this? It was just a really and that was a complete failure on my part, but also certainly a failure on the quality of the physical education teaching. And I'm sure there are people who have had experiences, who have had extraordinary experiences in physical education at primary school or high school, which have transformed their relationship to their bodies. But I suspect there are a lot fewer of those than the ones than the story you're telling of your own.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I hope that the narratives have shifted. And I'm not really. I think I just want to. I'm just really struck by the idea of. I'm struck by the idea of you never quitting again. And also just thinking about there is such power in knowing that this isn't working for me, so I'm going to walk away from it, and that doesn't reduce me in any way.
Yeah, I completely agree, but it's that even as you're saying that, it's still on the body of a former athlete that is, it really it makes me tingle.
How does that translate to the other parts of your life, do you think?
I think the thing that I think the complex part of that, and I suspect that, well, I'm not going to speak for anyone here other than myself, which is the complex part of that is, what are the implications for other people of me not finishing something? So, for example, what if I don't do the part I'm supposed to do as part of let's say, a collaboration or something like that? Then it has a direct, you might say, impact on those other people, in terms of either them being able to do their own job, or their sense of their role in the collaboration, or things like that. And so there's something about the social aspect. I think it's more or less easy if I'm thinking about or it's easier if I'm thinking about, well, what's to me, what's its effect on me, and what are the going to be the best things for what I think about myself, and all those, and the stress or the pleasure, all of different things that come into making a decision like that. But it is the social aspect I find more interesting, maybe, but also more complex.
Yeah. But then again, you've got friends from being, a child, like a tiny, tiny child. And so there is that sense of continuity, of socialization that I just don't have.
Mm. But, we have them at, it was interesting the other day I was at I guess it was a conference. It wasn't really, it was more like a big meeting, investigating. It was with a very particular sort of agenda and trying to think about this it's very cross-disciplinary. And I was one of the people who was, I was just a note taker, effectively an unpaid note taker. So I was someone who was observing slightly a little more outside. And it really was interesting in one moment when in the small group, so a group of 6 people, including me, they're having a conversation, I'm taking notes. And every now and again I'd ask someone to clarify, or I'd say, does that mean, so it wasn't that I wasn't participating, but I was much more, I was less of an expert in the area than they all were.
Yeah, you were a bit out of focus.
Exactly. And, and that's quite a treat. And one of the people was very vocal, very strong opinions. And when they stopped talking, would open their computer and start doing emails. And
wow.
Or walk away and get a cup of tea, come back, talk. It was a little less clear than that, but that's if you were, for the sake of the story, that was pretty much what was going on. So fine when they were talking, absent when they weren't. And it really occurred to me that they were it was, you could say, well, the contribution that the person made was remarkable, had quite interesting things to say. But what was going on in terms of how you as a group, as social human beings, social animals, what that says to what it is that you have to say in the group, that this person cannot even pay attention to that. And so I guess I'm trying to sort of hint at it's the things we're doing when we're not doing, you might say. So what are the implications for me of pulling out of that particular thing? How does it influence the sense of cohesion in the group, or the kinds of conversations that might come out when people feel like they're being heard? Hey, I was thinking we probably should finish, but I had a little story to tell from yesterday, which I thought might be useful. And that is, I met up with, hadn't seen her for a long time, or family, but my great niece, who's 6 years old, and loves mathematics. And it was we spent the entire time. She had a little kind of, I had a notebook and also this sort of erasable thing, like one of those magic erasers from the old days, but it was like a cheap plastic digital version. And she would write a little sum and ask me to fill in the gap. And then it was interesting when I started going, I wonder where she's at. And then, when you say to someone 4 times 3, or 3 times 4, and you give them, they're looking at their fingers of 4, and they're looking at their other fingers of 4, and then they're having to get another set of 4 fingers and then count them like that. That's the. But then when I did it as a pattern, 1 times 4, 2 times 4, 3 times 4, 4 times 4, when she saw the pattern, she was able to meet the pattern almost immediately. She was absorbing patterns so incredibly. For example, 1 times 10. 2 times 10, 3 times 10, 4 times 10. As soon as she saw that you just added a 0 or 2 zeros, I was able to ask her 458 times 10 equals. And so it was fantastic, her absorbing principles and patterns and then going boom, and not being at all shaken or distracted by longer numbers. It was so much fun just seeing her deal with this. It was really beautiful, and the pleasure she was taking it.
That sounds awesome.
I know, and then I just sent her a message which was in brackets, 4 + 3, and then gap, and then in brackets 2 + 1 or whatever it was. And so that's bracketing and going, is it less than, greater than, or equal? So she's dealing with those amazing abstractions at the age of 6 years old.
What?
Yeah, it's fantastic, eh? I mean, her dad's a software developer. He's basically a mathematician.
Oh, still. Wow. Wow. And on that bombshell, I think we should stop recording.
We should.